Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is October 8th, 2017, and today I'm going to be talking about the fourth Oxford group, absolute love. Now, before we get started, I need you to please set aside everything that you think you know about love and open your minds to a new perspective, a new experience, and a new understanding about what it is and what it can be. Is your head emptied out now of that word? If I have to explain what love is, I will let you know. The reason that we need to break up with this word love is a lot of people hear that word and they bring their own connotations and personal history to it, right? And in our society, particularly, it tends to be really romanticized as far as in movies and novels and poetry. It's all these great love stories. And that's like a very specific type of romantic love, right? But there's all kinds of other all-consuming love that exists in the world. Just look at parents and how they love for their children, or the way that I loved Coppola and Gladwell and all of my dogs who have died. The love that you have for a friend, that is a completely different kind of love. And these are all variations of love, and none is more or less than the other. But we throw that word around so much. I could tell you, I love pizza. And it's okay, but I probably wouldn't give a kidney up for it. I could tell you I love road trips, and I do, but that's like a different kind of love. The type of love that we're going to be talking about is not just an emotion or like a feeling that you feel. It's not just a good feeling. It's not romance. It's not just even being kind or being glad somebody exists. It is a force of nature, love is. And it's truly the only thing that we were created for. We were created for love and in love. And if you're willing to have an open mind about love as a force, as something that's more natural to us than even just breathing is, I think that this will give you a new perspective on how to orient your life around love and how you experience and receive it. So, before we get started, I do want to just let you know on a personal note, I have procrastinated this video. I was supposed to have shot this like over a week ago, and just one, so I can be done with this series, and I have a bunch of other video ideas. But I found myself really stuck because I was experiencing a form of heartbreak and just unmet expectations. And I really had to sit and analyze what my relationship with love currently is. And I have been on all ends of the spectrum, right? And I have been somebody who always thought that because I was constantly pouring into others without reciprocation, that was love. And it can be, but my motives underneath that were a little bit different, whereas I was really giving into love in order to receive it. And that's not entirely pure. Remember, we talked about absolute purity in another video. And that there have been other times where I withheld love, either consciously or unconsciously. When people were showing me love, it was really uncomfortable, and I shut it down, walked away, had to get away from it and distance myself as much as possible. And honestly, I did that because I was afraid, right? And in the first scenario, I was also afraid that maybe I wasn't lovable. And in the second scenario, I thought that I still wasn't lovable. So what's wrong with this person that they want to show me love? My history here with love is probably just as fractured as probably the majority of people's perception and experience with it is. On the other hand, I've had beautiful, like cell DNA changing types of love in my life. And I just want to cry just even saying that. The type of love that is so pure and honest, and just there is nothing you have to say sometimes. Just be in the room with somebody and feel it. It's palpable. It is just this love. It is this understanding. It is this, oh my gosh, I want to cry. It is this love that knows no bounds, that has no expiration dates, that has no even need for language. Excuse me. There really can be no words for the type of love that I have been so fortunate to experience. And this love can be with other people, it can be in groups of people, and it can literally just be just me and God. And it is transformative, it is beautiful, it is, like I said, it like changes the DNA in my body. And it is life-giving, it is hopeful, it is encouraging. And then we all know 1 Corinthians 13, I think it is, right? It's like love is patient, love is kind, love doesn't keep score. And we know that whole spiel, and it is so true. And when you really look at the type of love, the purest form of love that you've experienced in your life, it will follow that. But anyway, all of that to say, I have experienced a threshold of it in my life, and I am obsessed with it in this way that I am grateful for it. And whenever I have found myself blocked off from love, it is because there is an underlying fear, a fear that one, I can't control it, two, that I'll be hurt by it, or three, that it's like not real or something. And wow, my nose got really red. One of my favorite things that Mark Houston said about love was, I should be able to love you just as you are. Nothing has to change, and you don't even have to love me back. And that is literally how I try to live my life. And I fail at it every single day. But it is a nice aspiration to have. And that whole concept is not possible me on my own will. It just, I feel like I'm a pretty loving person, but I couldn't pull that off. Not with everybody, not with everyone all the time, always. That's pretty much a tall order for me. And so I really rely and depend on God's power for that. And how does that happen? I have to really look at the person through the eyes of the person who created them. And that is an overwhelming love that doesn't require reciprocation. How many of you have mothers or fathers or some a caretaker who took care of you and never really asked for anything back because they just cared for you? They just wanted to make sure that you were okay. And so that's what this is like, and trying to get to that place of love with people. And something that prevents us from doing that a lot of the time is the separation, that we create separation between each other. And the separation are all delusions. And I can say that wholeheartedly, knowing that we are no different nor more or less worthy of love. We're all equally worthy of love. And because we are all created in the image of God. And so when we are all created in the image of God, who is pure love, there is no room for negotiation about the worthiness of each person's love. What if they killed somebody? What if they abused me? What if they da da da? Those are all signs of somebody who is not in love, right? They are operating outside of love, but that doesn't make them less worthy of love. So by the mere existence, or something, a thought that came to mind today was like this phrase of being enough. I'm just not enough. I don't feel like I'm enough. And then you see all these social media posts that you are enough. You are enough. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, no, I'm not. Don't lie to me, okay? I don't like dishonesty, and I don't like this narrative that everybody is enough. I'm not enough. You're not enough. That other person's definitely not enough. Collectively, we could possibly be enough, right? If we worked together, we could be enough. But that still doesn't make us any less worthy of God or worthy of love. And I feel like people have a really difficult time separating earning love with just being love. And it's just twisted and it's so backwards. And it's no wonder the state of the world is how it is. We have no concept of who we are, and we are love, and we're all acting outside of it. And we are acting outside of it in this way that makes us lose our integrity, primarily with ourselves, which then projects out onto others. And it's caused devastation everywhere. And let's take this one step further. What does this have to do with sobriety, right? What it has to do with sobriety is fear and shame and control. These are like the greatest offenders for addicts and alcoholics, like we basically operate out of fear, shame, and control constantly. And there is no love in those three things. Fear is this overall feeling of distrust, and distrust in that I'm taken care of, that God cares about me, that I'm going to be okay even if this thing doesn't work out, right? Fear that I'm not enough, that I deserve this, that I'm going to be in pain, that I'm going to suffer. These are all fears. Shame, again, this goes back to the unworthiness. If they truly knew who I was, if they only knew that I did this, if it's not that I did bad, it's that I am bad. And this goes in circles right back to the unworthiness and the unlovability. And a lot of people work really hard to overcome that. And they do this very performatively by pretending to be people that they're not, or by hiding who they really are because they think that it's shameful. And then control. How many things are you trying to control on a daily basis? How upset and frustrated, and who do you take it out on when you lose control? And control truly is a lack of trust in something or someone. When you're trying to control the outcome of something, it is because you do not trust it. And if you do not trust it, you cannot love it. And so that is ultimately things that, as addicts and alcoholics, keeps us separated from love and keeps us wounded. It keeps us harmful and harmed. It's like a self-perpetuating thing. The more fear, shame, and control that we interject in our relationships, not just with another person, but also with God, the more separated we become and the more isolated and alone that we feel. And who's always reliable and trustworthy and always shows up is booze or drugs, right? That's the go-to quick fix. It's very easy to do that. That is a predictable outcome. And yeah, maybe I'll have some fear about the repercussions. Maybe I'll have some shame from it, but I can just drink that away again. And this keeps us trapped in this addiction cycle and self-destruction and just self-sabotage. And it's so devastating to see, because this form of protection that we're trying to protect ourselves from, right? We're trying to protect ourselves from the hurt and the disappointments and the heartbreak. All it does is keep us from experiencing what we're here to experience, which is love. Mark Houston said something along the lines of, the power of love will bring about the death of self-centered fear. Because think about it. When you truly love something or somebody, there is nothing that can keep you from demonstrating, showing, making sure that person knows and feels it, right? I often think about, I'm sorry, I'm just such a single gal over here. I'm going to bring up my dogs a lot, but there truly is like something that just happens to me internally when I have my dogs. I think about the number of times where I just really thought the dog was going to attack them. I will throw myself between this giant dog and my dog, or I will throw a hand in there. Anything that I need to do to get this other dog off of my dog, I will do to save and protect my dog, right? I think about the amount of debt that I've gotten into for my dogs. Just for my parents, I just think about the things that I will do and have done because out of love, out of pure love. And my nephew, I'm like, oh my gosh, if anything harms my nephew, you need to just count me out because I will be completely devastated. And yet, on the other side of that, there needs to be an unrelenting and all-consuming trust and love in that things will go how they should and that I can be okay. That love that we pour into specific things that don't work out, it's not a waste. It exists. What a beautiful experience to have had. Now we know what that was like. And now we get to experience a different form of it. I have something in my apartment. I think it's like a candle or something that says something along the lines of, no two forms of love are ever the same, or no type of love ever comes twice, or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, every love that I've experienced has been tremendously unique and never to be duplicated again. And some of that love ended up being pretty toxic at the end. Some of it just ended up being really poor attachment, but some of it ended up being really beautiful, and I could still see the love in it. I could see a lot of damaged love, a lot of unhealthy love that was really peppered in with defense mechanisms that didn't serve anybody or protect anybody. But it was still this experience that made me who I am today. I don't know if you've had anything like that before. I would love to hear if you have. If any of this is resonating, actually, let me know. Leave me a comment. I'm so sorry for already crying earlier, but anyway, love is not just an emotion, it is action, it is what we do. If you sit across from me and tell me, I love you, but that's all you do, there's nothing to back that up. There's no actual, maybe I might believe you, but how do you show up in the world? How do you show up for me? How do I show up for others? If I just tell people that I love them, but then I never answer the phone or call them back or show up for them when they need me or listen to them or respect them, is that love? I don't know. I don't think so. Love needs action. And step 12 is all about love and action, right? And we're able to, by the time we get to step 12, we've already been cleared of our resentments. We've already made amends. We are on new footing. Our roots are grasping new soil, right? And we are firmly planted in our identity in God, our higher power, which is ultimately pure love. And so there is no separation between us and others at that point. When I am working with a sponsee, I it is just soul nourishing. Like I am just ablaze with love when I get to talk to my sponsees, and oh gosh, I'm gonna cry again. Now I see why God made me wait to make this video. Okay, no, but seriously, my sponsees, these are women who I am eternally connected to now. Okay. It is such a pure love that I get to experience with my sponsees. I just had somebody who I worked with, oh gosh, 5, 6 years ago. And I often think about her. She knows she's one of my toughest cases. And I really prayed for her, man. I prayed for her so hard. And then we ended up not working together anymore because we just had so many disagreements. And then we ended up working together again on step work. And it really showed me so much about what love, because I loved her, but I was like, how can I show up in love for her? And one of that was being brutally honest. And I was such a people pleaser pushover that it was really difficult for me to be honest with her. And I got to be honest with her, and she got to receive that honesty, and I got to show up for her over and over again. And I feel like, healed some very traumatized parts of ourselves in that interaction. And she'll text me, I mean, at least once or twice a year, we'll get to catch up. And she recently reached out to me with some news, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it was just so beautiful. And I just really could see God working in her life, and she could see God working in her life. And this is somebody who had told me that, sorry, but if you thought I was going to talk about love and not cry, then you don't know me at all. This was somebody who had a very complicated and difficult relationship and understanding of God. And she found her understanding, and she found her identity in God. And her life has been completely transformed. And I feel so blessed that she keeps me updated on it. What a gift that is. And so that was an extremely healing process for both of us. And it continues to be. And that is one of pure love. There's nothing in this world that I'm expecting from her. And at this point, I don't think there's anything she's expecting from me. We just love the experience that we've had together, and that we get to share that experience with each other. And what a gift that it is. There's nothing but just absolute and pure love there. And it is an action. It took action for that to happen. And when we are in step 12 and we are helping others and we are being of service to people who have nothing to offer us, that is love in action. And it is a gift, and it is a privilege to be able to show that to people. So if you have the opportunity, do it. Even if you don't immediately understand how or why this is in love, or you're very resentfully doing it, I can assure you that there is love in the underlying currents of that. And you'll be able to reflect on it later and be like, oh, there was some goodness in me that truly felt reconciled with this act of love because that is what we are created and what we are wired for. And love truly replaces fear, which is, again, the root of our addictions and our struggles and the delusions and the self-defeating thoughts that we have. Going back to the ninth step promise, the promise is that we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And this truly comes, for me, I noticed this during, as I was making amends, because as you're making amends, you're having to call people who you haven't talked to in years. And I just remember thinking, like, as someone who was extremely self-conscious, being like, what are they going to think about me? This is so embarrassing. I'm just going to call them and say I had to make amends because I'm in a 12-step program. And I really had to just center myself and be like, okay, whatever happens, I'm still loved and cherished by my creator who made me for whatever purpose I'm here for. And two, God, give me the power to do this because I can't do it on my own. And I did. And it was beautiful. And so much more healing transpired from the amends that I got to make. And what a gift that is. And again, the underlying currents of all of that, the foundation of all of that is pure love, absolute love. And so again, so what's blocking us from love? It is fear. If I love, I'll get hurt. When I loved previously, I got hurt or I got taken advantage of, or I was lied to. All of these are forms of being hurt. And again, the shame, I don't deserve the love. If they truly knew who I was, if they knew how inadequate I was, or they just don't see what a failure I am, and it's not, you're deserving of love and you actually don't have to do anything to earn it. And maybe if it's not from that person, maybe that person just isn't capable of giving you the love that you deserve, that you are worthy of. But the cool thing is, like, nobody actually has to give it to you. You just are. If you can believe that, if you can really tune in and sit with yourself and just absorb the presence of God around you, that is love. You can breathe it in anytime you fill your lungs with fresh air. That is a symbol and a significant form of love. And then there's control, right? Trying to like ration out love and being like, I only have enough love for you and enough love for you. And it's understandable why we do that because love is an overwhelming power, right? It is a force of nature that makes this entire world operate. And it is completely reasonable to feel out of control when we fall in love or when we are in love or when we have love for others. And that can be a little bit terrifying as addicts and alcoholics who, when we don't like to be out of control of what happens, and especially not when our feelings and our ego are involved. And there, again, just going back to this idea of just loving people where they are and just how they are, and they don't have to change. And I want to be really clear that you can love people and not have to interact with them and not have to let them be abusive towards you or let them continue lying to you or being dishonest with you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do in those situations is to separate yourself from them. And it can be to say, okay, this person isn't in a place to receive my love, but that doesn't prevent me from feeling it for them. And it certainly doesn't mean that they're less worthy of it. It just means I don't have to continue to engage in this way that is enabling this treatment that I'm receiving for loving them. And that can also mean sometimes people just don't know, right? So for example, I was extremely closed off to love, and particularly one relationship that I'm thinking of. And and I had love. I think that my boyfriend at the time would feel like he knew that I loved him. It was expressed very poorly, but I did have love for him. And when he also expressed or reciprocated or even insinuated that I was also lovable, it was as if he had just peeled all my skin off and was asking me to jump into like hot sauce or something, right? It was just like so painful. I was like, there's no way that I could be lovable. It was very difficult to confront that and reconcile that within myself. And that caused me to push him away because it made me feel like he's not seeing something. When he truly does see that, he's not going to want to be with me. Or even worse, when he does see that, he'll eventually leave or something. I just had all these stories about it, about being loved. And then I was like, I don't want to be loved that way. I want it to look this way. I need you to show up this way. And it just was all just stipulations that I had put in place. Or it's okay, I will love you when I have this, or when I have this together, or that together. And when I figure out this part of my life, then I'll be able to love you. And all of that were just forms of trying to control something that I knew I had no control over and that felt too vulnerable to feel. To expect me to even show up as an adult, loving and providing reciprocity, it was too much for me at the time. There was no way I could go back, and I got to make amends to him, by the way, so don't worry. And why do we love without conditions? Because that is how we are loved. That is how God loves us, without conditions. All the jacked up stuff that I have done and probably will do in the future is just a blip in the existence of mankind since we were ever created, and God still created me. He still created you and everybody else. And what we've done with that creation is of our own doing if we decided to live outside of the will of God and not in compliance with the love that we are called to share and to be and to show up as in the world. That's when things get messy. That's where greed comes in, and that's where being deceitful comes in, and being dishonest. And that's where all the real pain in the world comes from, is by not giving into this power. Because now we want to be greedy. Now we want to disparage certain groups or oppress certain groups because we think that they're not worthy, because if they were worthy, then that means that someone's going to take something from me. And if someone's going to take something from me, then I can't trust it. And that means I can't be taken care of and whatever. And we see this played out in society all the time. That's why society is the way that it is. And imagine if one by one we all broke out of those old definitions of how to operate in the world and stepped into loving fully. Even the person who voted differently from you, or the person who made a joke at your expense, or the person who just straight up lied to you, you can still love them. They're still worthy of love. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be in their face and showing them love. Sometimes, again, like I said, the most loving thing we can do is create space between us and them. If they truly, and this is very similar also to how God loves. God doesn't force love on us. God wants us to opt into it, into relationship with God. And when we are not, or we are putting a distance, or we are purposefully blocking ourselves, or even unconsciously blocking ourselves from the love of God, God is okay and backs off, backs up. And if that's what you want, and that's usually when our life just turns into a miserable hell, by the way. How can we break free? We can recognize that love is given freely, we don't earn it. And we can drop the expectations around love. You just need to stop keeping score around it and surrender control, and just know that love is about being present. It's about presence. It's not manipulation. It's not getting what you need or what you want. It just is, always. So I hope I have adequately explained that love is an action and not just a feeling. It is what we do and how we show up in the world, and it's not just what we say or what we write down in a love letter, right? It is, this kind of goes back to the best apology is changed behavior. Love requires that changed behavior, and it requires a trust too, not just in other people, but in yourself and in God. You will hear me say this probably in every single video, but my relationship with others is a direct reflection of my relationship with God. And when I am out of integrity on any of those things, I'm out of integrity on all of them. Some simple ways that you can practice absolute love daily is in your morning prayer or your morning meditation, and just asking God or higher power, help me love without conditions today, and align me and my thoughts, my words, and my actions with love. Let everything that I do be loving today. And let me accept everything that happens with love today. And, before, if you're getting agitated, you're having a bad day, that's a really good time to pause before you react and ask, or even before you do something big, like some grand gesture or something, ask yourself, am I acting out of love or am I acting out of fear? Because you could be doing both and have these great romantic gestures, and it's typically still out of fear. It's still a manipulation sometimes. So, something to think about. Another way to practice absolute love daily is to forgive, because holding resentment does block you from experiencing love because you are in a delusion that there is any separation between you and that person that you are resentful towards. I hope that makes sense. And then, of course, serve. Get out of yourself and do something for somebody else, and especially do something for someone who can't do anything for you in return. So this week, try to love without expectations. Love someone even if they never say thank you, and let me know how it goes. Have you done this? Are you familiar with this type of understanding of love? And by the way, this book actually helped me a lot. It's called The Greatest Thing in the World. And it really describes that Bible verse where it talks about love covers a multitude of sins. It truly does. Like when you're able to rise above this transactional relationship that we're all indoctrined into growing up and have this expectation that all relationships should be a transaction, right? I do this and you do that. I do this, you do that. When you can rise above that and really come and operate from a place of greater love, it's, oh, that thing that person did to me, I could see that was done out of fear. I love them anyway, because they clearly are not acting within their own scope, their own understanding of what love is. And more importantly, they forgot who they were and who they are. People who are not loving tend to not know, tends to act outside of who they are. And we are all, again, divinely created in the image of God. So, all right. I will just end this by saying you are already 100%, 110% fully loved, okay? Not for what you do, not for how good you are, not because you did this or you did that, but just because you are. It's just who you are. And don't forget that. God is love and you are God's. Also, if you want to experience freedom from like expectations and from this transactional way that most of the world operates, then love without expectation is incredibly freeing. And it's difficult. And trust me, I just experienced this personally myself because it's like sitting there going, they didn't do this or this and this. And now I can look at it and be like, they were doing the best they could. And the best I can do now is love them from a distance. So drop me a comment. What is one way that you're choosing absolute love this week? And if you haven't already, and this was helpful at all, or you're still interested in love or sobriety or spiritual growth, subscribe and share this with someone who might need to hear it. All right. I love you. Bye.